A highway snarls to a stop because a bobcat kitten refuses to move. Why is a wild predator flashing a human tag and staring down cars? When Trooper Maya follows, a storm forms, a cliff yawns, and a secret in the pines turns the nuisance into a life-saving message you won't believe. Heat shimmered above Highway 89A like a mirage that couldn't decide whether to be air or water. Red rock walls shouldered the sky, throwing bars of shadow across the asphalt while traffic bunched into an anxious knot. Trooper Maya Delgado eased her cruiser onto the shoulder, clicked the light bar, and felt the evening's furnace push against the windshield. She didn't stay inside, she stepped out, boots meeting heat. The cause of the hesitation stood on the centerline, a tuft-eared bobcat kitten, small as certainty and twice as stubborn. It didn't scatter when a pickup idled within 10 yards. It didn't flinch when a motorcycle coughed and went still. It made short, purposeful dashes forward, back, forward, then planted its paws and stared down the cars with gold eyes too deliberate for panic. Maya lifted cones from the trunk and laid order onto chaos. Cone, cone, sweep of palm, bleeding urgency from the scene. Drivers quieted under competence. A teenager in a band tee lowered his phone and watched. Only when the perimeter felt safe did she crouch. Heat radiated through her knees. Up close, the kitten's sides soared with quick breaths. Its ears tilted toward the ponderosa fringe and snapped back to her face. When it pivoted, something on the hind leg caught light. A bright orange reflective strap with a tiny metallic charm and a scuffed QR tag, stamped with 4 digits. Not a state tracker, not anything she'd seen on wildlife calls that ended with tranquilizers and lectures. The detail pressed at the edge of her thoughts, asking to be named. "Hey there," Maya said, keeping her profile narrow, hat brim shading her eyes. "What's your story?" The kitten answered with a rasping chirp, half question, half insistence, then glanced toward the tree line as if inviting her to look past the obvious. Its stance wasn't random. It felt like a message in a language she almost knew. Protocol said clear the hazard. Another voice, persistent as a pebble in a boot, said listen. She raised her phone, trying to catch the code, but glare burned the screen. The kitten lifted the leg again as if to help, then stepped neatly to the shoulder and paused there, ears forward, waiting. "Dispatch 3 Charles 19, she radioed. "Juvenile bobcat in lane, tagged with a non-standard orange strap and QR. Send wildlife, I'm maintaining traffic control." "Copy, 3 Charles 19, state vet en route." Wind combed the canyon tops. The light slipped another notch. In the glove box lay an unsigned resignation letter, folded to the size of a confession. Winter had put it there. A roadside rescue gone wrong, a smile she hadn't earned, the silence that followed. She could feel the paper, as if guilt had temperature. "Want me to scare it?" a man called from a sun-bleached SUV. "Please don't," Maya said, level. "Let's give her a path." She finished the cone line, motioned drivers to drift, and crossed the threshold from asphalt to needles. The air cooled by degrees, a dry vanilla exhaled from ponderosa bark. The kitten chirped again, brighter this time, then trotted between manzanita and juniper, stopping after 20 feet to look back. Waiting. "Okay," Maya said to no one, and the cat and herself. "Show me." She tipped her chin at the band tee kid. "Keep folks behind the cones." He saluted. A camera clicked somewhere. Maya stepped under the trees. Highway noise thinned into the hush of insects. Behind her, hazard lights pulsed. Ahead, a small, wild thing held still with impossible patience, the orange strap winking. Why does a wild bobcat carry a human identifier, and why is it waiting for me now? A state truck rolled in behind Maya's cruiser, white paint scuffed from too many dirt roads. Dr. Aaron Kincaid stepped down, hat brim low. He nodded instead of shaking hands, eyes taking in cones. Traffic, the cat, then Maya. "Trooper Delgado," he said, "you've got a situation with opinions." "The kitten's been deliberate," Maya replied. "Orange strap on the hind leg, QR tag, 4 digits, not a collar." "Not our hardware," he said, already lifting a field tablet. "Telemetry goes on the neck. Leg straps are for brief handling, if someone improvises. Let's read that code without spooking her." They stepped into the fringe of shade, where heat backed off. The bobcat materialized between manzanita. She planted herself, angled her leg, and let sun find the orange band so it flashed like a tiny road flare. "Hold steady," Aaron murmured. He braced the tablet, zoomed, and snapped. The image rendered a dust-scratched matrix and the digits 1472 beneath a kite-shaped charm. "Got it," he said. "If I'm lucky, that QR pings a registry." He thumbed through menus with muscle memory, found a portal, typed a credential field staff carried. A page blinked open. "HERA, High Elevation Research Area, Permit ID, EP1472, Holder, Park Elena. Status, overdue, check-in flagged." Maya keyed her mic. "Dispatch, confirm overdue for EP1472, Holder, Elena Park." "Affirmative," the radio answered. 38. Field ecologist, volunteer rehabber. Missed check-in last night. "Storm over the rim," noted. Thunder pressed against the canyon, far enough to ignore, close enough to matter. The bobcat churred, clipped and urgent, then pointed her whole body toward the trail and looked over her shoulder with expectation. "She's not lost," Aaron said. "That's line of sight referencing, recruiting behavior." Maya studied him. Competence lived in his posture, but she noticed the micro-pause when a semi eased by, and the high whine of its brakes made him flinch. A hearing aid rested flush against his skin. He adjusted it with a discreet thumb rub. "You good for a hike?" she asked. "I am if you are," he said. "I'll take vitals if we find her. You handle rope." "Deal." They prepped without fuss. Maya slung a rescue rope and carabiners, checked gloves, pocketed chemlights. Aaron shouldered a compact pack, trauma shears, splints, heat sheets, isotonic fluids, a coil of narrow cord he trusted like a friend. Maya called it in. 3 Charles 19 and State Vet leaving roadway on foot, following lead associated with EP 1472. Send SAR to my coordinates and put them at 45. Will maintain radio contact. "Copy," dispatch said. "Weather building north-northeast. Use caution." The bobcat, kite, if the charm meant what it looked like, kept herself visible at 15, then 20, then 30 feet, a measured distance that felt like a line they could cross only with permission. She would trot, stop, pivot. Her body was a metronome marking urgency and patience. "What would make a wild cat accept the noise of a road?" Maya asked, as they left asphalt for shade. Needles cushioned their steps, the air cooled. "Association," Aaron said. "When there's no better option, some rehabbers condition a simple sequence. Hard surfaces and engine smell equal humans. Humans equal help when distressed. It's not obedience. It's a door you teach them exists." "Did we teach her to knock?" Maya said. "Looks like she kicked it." They paused once, so Aaron could capture a cleaner image of the tag. The kite charm winked, its tail etched in a single, looping line like a promise. The folded paper in Maya's glove box went quiet again. Road noise thinned until the forest's quieter physics took over. Insect stridulation, a branch settling, a jay's scold. The cat's chirps threaded it all like a guide rope. Each time they lagged, she waited. Each time they matched her pace, she quickened. "At any point we can call this and circle back for a team," Aaron said, giving her the exit she'd never taken after winter. "At any point," Maya agreed, stepping over a fallen limb. but not this point. They followed a creature who had learned a human signal and returned it into shade that smelled of rain that hadn't fallen yet, toward a story the tag had only begun to tell. Under the ponderosa canopy, the day finally exhaled. Light sifted down in green-gold flakes. The bobcat kitten held a 30 to 40-foot lead, always visible, never touchable. When Maya slowed to check footing, the cat waited. When she matched the pace, the cat trotted on, pausing just long enough to look back. Road noise thinned to a far hiss. Maya and Aaron moved with careful economy, her scanning ahead, him reading sign. The trail narrowed at a switchback, and there the first clue presented itself. Scuffed boot marks, edges still crisp, heel gouged in as if balance had failed and a body had dug for purchase. Rain had peppered the soil, but not blurred it. Maya crouched, palm hovering, to keep from marring detail. "Shortened stride," Aaron said softly. Weight thrown to the inside. She either slipped or the surface sloughed. The bobcat churred once and led them on. They found the second clue on a flat stone, a snapped graphite trekking pole, sections aligned by a hand that had hoped to mend it and then moved on. The wrist loops smelled faintly of salt. Fibers at the break stood up like a brush. "Caught between rocks," Aaron murmured. "Torque. If she leaned into it, it would have pitched her forward." The air changed register. Anvil-topped clouds were building over distant mesas, and thunder began to travel the bones rather than the ears. The kitten lifted her head to read the sky, then angled toward a tangle of manzanita. Color snagged the eye, a shred of orange pack rain cover, ragged and bright, pinned by thorn. Maya freed it gently. It popped in her glove like a small flag surrendering. "Same orange as the leg strap," she said. "Teach the association," Aaron replied. "Orange means us." They moved again. The forest rose and fell in quiet swells. A citrus salt smell grazed the air at the next bend. On a tongue of duff, carved by last night's runoff, lay a damp, half-melted electrolyte tab beside its peeled wrapper, the wrapper tucked under a pebble with the stubborn courtesy of someone who leaves no trace even when pain is bargaining for attention. "Cramps or blood pressure dropping," Aaron said. She stopped long enough to help herself. The kitten kept her covenant distance. She chose open sight lines, skirted snarls that would snag a small body, and marked each decision with a glance. The fifth sign was intention-made paper, a map fragment under a 3-stone cairn. Water had wrinkled it, and sun had dried it flat again, but the graphite held. A hand-drawn arrow curved along contour lines toward a sketched notch. Beside it, in a left-leaning hand, a single word with a question mark. "Kite." Maya pressed a gloved finger to the margin. "She wrote your name," she said to the cat, and asked the air to carry it to someone. "Contingency," Aaron said. "If the animal fails, the map speaks." The trail sloped onto a slick rock bench polished by centuries of weather and last night's tantrum. The surface was tattooed with evidence, mud rosettes where eddies spun, fern-like fans of grit dragged by receding water, slide scars where something heavy had gone from control to surrender. A juniper branch lay fresh snapped, its pale heartwood bright as bone. A drag line cut the silt toward a narrow fracture in the stone. The bobcat reached the rim of that fracture and began to pace, small body tense, tail stub rigid. Her churring changed, softer, quicker, a metronome laid under silence. Maya dropped flat and slid forward until the slot opened below her like a dark seam, 30 feet down. A cool corridor ran between walls the color of old coins. A trickle stitched the bottom. A wind-thrown log had wedged across the gap, and a flaked slab had come down to rest upon what it should never rest upon. a human body. A jacket dark with seepage, one leg pinned under the slab at a wrong angle, a hand splayed against rock, fingers bloodless with effort. A face half-turned, hair matted to one temple, skin blanched by cold and time. Maya pulled back and breathed once. "Subject located," she said. She keyed her mic. "Dispatch 3 Charles 19, subject in a slot approximately 30 feet below a slick rock bench north of 89A, Oak Creek sector. Coordinates to follow." She read them cleanly. "Subject pinned under jammed log and slab. Appears conscious or semi-responsive." "Copy 3 Charles 19, dispatch came back. "SAR mobilizing, ETA 45, air on standby, weather permitting." 45 minutes, wire tightened the moment. Lightning flickered far off. Thunder arrived on delay, rolling along stone and spine. The bobcat folded into a sphinx at the rim, eyes locked on Maya as if weighing whether this was the kind of human who finished what she started. Aaron eased beside her and looked down. He measured distances, anchors, margins. "We can reach her," he said. "Stabilize, heat, airway, perfusion. We don't move the slab, we don't become patients." Maya's hands found rope. Muscle memory unspooled. Flake, clip, check. The cat's small sound set a clock only the living can hear. "Coordinates sent," Maya said into the mic. "We're initiating access. Lightning observed north-northeast." She met Aaron's eyes. He nodded once. They moved without hesitation. The forest held its breath while 2 humans answered a summons a wild thing had delivered across heat and asphalt and shade. Juniper roots made a dependable anchor. Maya ran the rope around the trunk, clipped a carabiner, tied a munter for control, and added a backup. Aaron tug-tested the bark, set a sling, and checked her harness with quick, deliberate pressure. The slot breathed cool air. Above, stormlight turned pewter. "On rope," Maya said, easing back. Friction caught. She walked her boots down, pebbles ticking into the trickle below. Aaron followed on a second line, descending in short, clean motions. "Step right," he coached softly. "Ledge at your 9. At the bottom, the temperature fell again. The place smelled of wet stone. The slab lay across Elena's lower leg, jammed against a wind-thrown log. Up close, skin pale, lips blue, hair matted. Jacket soaked, her left ribs rose shallow, the right side stuttered, every inhale negotiating with pain. "Elena, I'm Trooper Delgado," Maya said, voice low. "Dr. Kincaid's here. We're going to help you." A blink, a whisper. "Cold." "We'll fix that." Aaron's kit opened. Rescue heat sheet, gauze, pressure wrap, SAM splint. "Pulse distal to the injury," he said, fingertip at her foot. "Weak, but present." He brushed her toes. "Feel that?" "Pins," Eleanor breathed. Then, nothing. "Watch for compartment pressure," Aaron murmured. "Stabilize, leg level, no levering." Maya slid foil beneath Elena's shoulders and hips, tucked heat at armpits and groin, then padded between rock and spine with spare clothing. She loosened a chest strap and tipped the chin to open the airway without twisting the neck. One capful of water. Sip. Stop. Something light touched Elena's hand. The bobcat crouched on a narrow shelf above the slab. She nose-bumped Elena's fingers and sat back, ears forward. A thin, hopeful trill escaped her. "Kite," Elena whispered, warmer than the foil. "Good girl." "You know her?" Maya said. Fragments came between breaths. "Orphan. Spring. Soft rehab. Minimal contact." Another breath. "Taut associations. Hard surface and engine smell mean humans. Humans mean help." Her gaze flicked to the orange on her trapped leg. "Storm hit. Snag broke. Couldn't reach beacon. Looped permit tag to her strap. Told her, go to the road. Follow the smell." Maya activated a heat pack and tucked it near Elena's core. Aaron listened at the inside of Elena's wrist, intent. A high hiss from wind in the crack made him flinch, tinnitus catching a spark. Then he slid a thumb width under Elena's scapula. Her next inhale came smoother. "Better?" he asked. "Yes." Maya radioed. 3 Charles 19 to dispatch. Adult female located. Hypothermic conscious. Lower leg entrapment. Suspected fibula fracture. Possible rib involvement. Distal pulse weak. Sensation altered. Warming and stabilization initiated. Slot cool with light flow. Lightning north-northeast. Copy. 3 Charles 19 SR ETA 38. Air on standby. Time simplified. Maya slid the splint under the calf to cradle what they could. Aaron rapped with measured tension, watching Cap refill in Elena's face. Pain surged. Maya broke it into counts. Inhale 4, exhale 6, until the wave lost teeth. Elena matched her, stubborn and disciplined. Maya did not freeze. The winter letter belonged elsewhere. Rain spattered once, then reconsidered. Thunder rolled like furniture 2 rooms away. The slot brightened by a degree. Kite held steady on her shelf, trembling once when a pebble rattled, then resettling. Her eyes tracked their hands as if entering each gesture in a ledger. Heat, water, voice, care. Rope hissed above. "Saron's seen," a voice called. "Anchors set." 2 techs coming with basket. "Copy," Maya answered. "Space is tight, 2 max, slab pinning lower leg, do not move it." "Understood." They came down like they'd practiced 100 times, 1 medic, 1 rope tech, lowering the Stokes through the narrow world like a ship in a lock. Their assessment matched what Maya and Aaron found. Probable crushed fibula, possible rib fracture, early concern for compartment syndrome. Swelling, pallor, pain out of proportion, pins and needles. They padded voids, secured lines. Elena's eyes flashed panic as the basket cinched. Maya's palm found her shoulder. "You're going up soon. Keep me in sight. This part is movement. After that it's warm lights." A small smile. "Kite?" Elena asked. Aaron looked to the ledge. "We'll watch her until you can," he said. "You have my word." "All ready," the tech called. Above, the mechanical advantage took strain. Pulleys churring, rope gliding, a human rhythm over thunder's mumble. The basket rose, inch by inch, guided so it wouldn't spin. Kite stood as Elena passed her level, head tipped, churring a tight string of notes that learned goodbye without capitulating. Elena's fingertips brushed air. At the rim, the team rolled the basket to safety. A gloved hand signaled down. "Clear." Lines went slack. Sound changed. The canyon seemed to breathe again. Aaron exhaled. Maya's knees threatened to give. She told them no. Above, the storm spat once more and shouldered east, skirting the canyon. In the hush that followed, Kite looked from the rim light to the 2 humans who had answered her summons, then back to the empty edge. She churred once, softer and settled. Maya coiled her line. "Let's get topside," she said, voice steady now for reasons beyond training. "We promised." Aaron checked the anchor, glanced at the cat, and nodded. "Good girl," he told Kite, as if praise could cross the boundary between wild and human and do no harm. Above, sirens began to echo, faint and thin nearby. They started up, bringing proof that a small, insistent life had bridged a distance equipment alone could not. Rotor wash lifted dust while the basket rolled to open ground. Flight medics knelt, trading clipped numbers as they settled oxygen and lines. When the helicopter doors slid wide, Maya stepped back and caught a last look at Elena's face. Blue easing toward pink, jaw unclenching under warm air and morphine. Over the engine thrum, Elena mouthed one syllable. "Kite." "We've got her," Maya said, not sure whether the words reached the patient or the wind. The basket slid in, the doors closed, the helicopter rose toward Flagstaff and dwindled into sky. By the time the ropes came down and the gear walked out, evening had gathered at the trailhead. Park staff formed a semicircle and rerouted hikers. Rumor became story. Trooper, state vet, trapped scientist, baby bobcat. Kite stayed to shadow and not to belong. She appeared, vanished, reappeared 30 yards off, refusing fence and leash. When Aaron set a crate with the door open and the smell of towels, she circled it, sniffed, and sat back. A lure of meat earned a glance and nothing more. "She's not imprinting," Aaron said. "She's choosing proximity only as long as the problem remains." "What if the problem is us leaving?" Maya asked. "Then we leave a bridge, not a tether." He slid the crate under a juniper, draped it with shade, and set a dish of water by the roots. "If she wants enclosure, it'll be there. If not, we don't turn a rescue into a capture." Phones pinged. A local station posted first, bobcat, kitten leads trooper, and vet to trapped scientist in Slot Canyon. Regional outlets amplified, then national aggregators found the headlines weight. Photos from the highway showed a small animal planted on the centerline. Another caught the orange strap, bright against dusk. The park ranger handed Maya a satellite phone connected to Flagstaff Medical Center. "They're asking for you," he said. A flight nurse spoke, stable, warming, surgery consult in progress. Then Elena, thin but steady. "Trooper Delgado, Dr. Kincaid." "We're here," Maya said. Kite materialized at the lot's edge. "Thank you," Elena said. A breath. "I need one more favor. Will you watch over Kite until I can?" "Yes," Aaron said. "I'll take responsibility for her presence near human spaces. We'll keep her wildness intact." "Not to keep," Elena added, "to keep faith." "We understand," Maya said. After the call, Blue Hour settled. Volunteers filtered away. The ranger posted a lightning advisory. The lot resumed its quiet, dust cooling, heat sliding back into stone. Kite moved nearer, using Aaron as a windbreak. She chirred once, then eased into the grass as if to sleep with one eye open. When headlights swept the lot, she flowed back into the brush like water withdrawing from rock. At the cruiser, Maya opened the glove box and stared at the folded sheet. The paper had learned to weigh more. Tonight it felt thin again. She slid it deeper. Behind the registration, still unsigned. Her hands shook, not from doubt, but from the relief of having done the opposite of freezing. Across the lot, Aaron stood by his truck, phone to ear. "Yes, an adjustment. No, I don't want to come off the roster. Tomorrow's fine." He ended the call. "Audiology," he said. "If I'm going to be in the field with ropes and thunder, I owe my partners better signal." "Glad you're staying on the map," she said. "Today made that decision for me." They left the water dish and the shaded crate, and a strip of orange flagging hung low where only a cat would notice. They tucked into the crate a towel Elena had handled, a memory that wasn't a trap. They left quietly because departure is a lesson too. On the drive, a press request hit Maya's inbox, and then 5 more. Her sergeant texted a single line, "Good work, sleep." She smiled at the windshield. The desert was cooling, and wind lifted cool smell off trees, carrying it down slope toward the river. Behind them, in that seam between human and wild, a cat kept her watch, unclaimed, unafraid, not vanishing and not surrendering, holding the space until the one person she trusted enough to name her could come back and close the loop. 2 weeks later, the corridor at the Verde Valley Wildlife Center smelled of ocotillo and hand soap. Elena rolled her chair past shaded planters and posters on desert heat stress. Her leg was casted from knee to ankle, a bruise arced beneath the plaster like a remembered horizon. A volunteer opened the observation bay, and the world shifted, from clinic murmurs to leaves and the quiet intent of bodies rehearsing futures. Kite's enclosure filled the far corner, sandstone shelves, juniper shade, a shallow stream, and a tangle of logs. An enrichment tech clipped a pulley to a cable and raised a meat cache just out of reach. Kite flowed up the lower rock, paused, and studied the problem with that taut stillness Elena trusted. A scent box, chamisa and crushed sage, waited on the upper shelf. Kite chose the cable, braced with forepaws, and hauled until her mouth found the prize. "She doesn't waste," the tech said, scribbling. "2 trials, 1 solution." Maya stepped beside Elena, uniform swapped for jeans and a plain cap. Kite looked down at the glass, eyes narrowing in the bright appraisal she reserved for particular humans. Visitors murmured. The cat's focus held on Maya, a brief churr lifting, not invitation, but recognition. "She remembers you," Elena said. "I wasn't sure I wanted to know that," Maya admitted. "Now I'm glad I do." Aaron arrived late, the sound processor behind his ear slimmed to a new model. "Less wind noise," he said. "More of what matters." They watched Kite solve and rest. Elena began the pitch she had polished in hospital drafts. "Edge species ambassadors," she said, "animals who remain biologically wild yet show stable, selective tolerance for humans under controlled conditions. Not mascots, not pets, bridges." "Our protocols minimize contact for a reason," the rehab coordinator said. "I know," Elena said. "I followed them, almost. I kept Kite 2 weeks beyond the guidance window because her responses lagged. I didn't document it. The rescue suggests the delay improved survivorship. She generalized from training to crisis." "Or you compromised rewilding," another staffer said. "Look at her," Aaron said, "and no solicitation, task solving. She differentiates staff from visitors, yet singles out a specific, unfamiliar human, and the behavior extinguishes when that human leaves, not imprinting, selective association governed by context." Eleanor slid a folder across the table. Highway photos, GPS from Maya's body cam, a trail map overlaid with storm runoff, a log of vocalizations with environmental notes. "Timing, path choice, road association," she said. Kite mapped a low-friction route and kept distance while sustaining line of sight. With the permit tag on her strap, she used road and humans as tools, not ends. We can study that edge and teach it. Board members paged in silence, slowing over the sequence where the basket rose past the ledge, and Kite held her ground, churring. "What would you ask for?" the coordinator said at last. "A 1-year pilot," Elena replied. "Kite as Case A. Strict criteria, no guest contact, research-only handling, choice-based participation, public programs behind glass on cognition, coexistence, and when not to intervene, parallel work on wildlife crossings along 89A. "And the exit?" Maya asked. "If dependence trends, we step back until it extinguishes. If she maintains her edge, we continue. The program ends if we can't protect autonomy." The silence became work rather than resistance. Finally, the coordinator nodded. "Approved. Conditional. Quarterly review." Elena exhaled and laughed quietly. Aaron smiled. Maya lifted 2 fingers to the glass. Kite flicked an ear. Gaze bright as a struck match, then turned back to the scent box, choosing her world while allowing theirs to stand near it. By mid-morning, the high desert ambassador campus sounded like hope. Banners lifted in canyon breeze, school buses hissed, a line curled beneath shade sails. Inside, a floor map stitched highways across habitat. The ribbon was reflective orange. Elena cut it with field shears and rolled to the lectern. "This program is a bridge," she said. Not to tame the wild, but to let people stand near it without breaking it. She named Kite and the backcountry night, and the permit tag, then the rules: choice, distance, transparency. In Gallery 1, where cats cross, a model canyon sprawled with miniature pignon and toy semis. Children pressed a button and watched bobcat figures approach a highway. On one side, bare asphalt, hesitation and risk. On the other, a vegetated overpass. The cats flowed, a counter tallying safe passages. A plaque announced a Conservation Foundation's gift to fund 3 wildlife crossings along 89A. Gallery 2 shimmered with scent. Behind glass, a teak dusted rock with chamisa oil and another with juniper. An overhead camera mapped Kite's routes from last week. Loops, revisits, neat avoidance of human odor. A display titled "When to Intervene, When to Observe." Let visitors slide scenarios along a continuum: orphan at dusk, fawn in tall grass, hawk grounded in wind. The answer cards were complicated on purpose. Aaron took the education stage after lunch, sleeves rolled, the processor behind his ear gleaming. "This is my hearing aid," he said. "Lightning and rotors made me face it. Fieldwork isn't invulnerability, it's adaptation." He walked through rope systems and redundancy, then spoke about listening for what doesn't make noise, stress in posture, a partner's silence, a storm-changing key. Maya stood by a photo of the highway standoff, answering questions about cones, caution, and how you read intent in a cat that won't be read. A teenager asked if she ever gets scared. "Every time something matters," she said. "Fear is a tool, not a driver." Later, she opened the glove box only in her mind. The folded letter remained. Now, a reminder to choose. Elena's afternoon talk owned the grey zones. The extra 2 weeks she kept Kite. How failure and humility live at protocol's edge. Why documenting doubt is an ethical act. The room didn't punish it. People nodded like neighbors who already knew. By late day, the campus relaxed. A mobile outreach van, wrapped with Kite's silhouette and the words "coexistence in practice," idled at the curb. A placard credited a state education grant underwriting the program so Kite's story could reach schools that can't reach here. A kiosk opened pre-orders for a conservation license plate stamped with a tuft-eared face and a tiny kite charm. An hour after closing, quiet returned. Maya lingered at the observation glass, hat in her hands. The enclosure kept the colors of evening. Kite rose from a ledge and padded down with the easy thrift of a body unpursued. She stopped a yard from the glass, ears tilting like sails, and looked up. Gold met brown. No food, no gesture. Recognition, unadorned and exact. On the patio, Aaron coiled demonstration rope, telling an intern that hearing is one way to listen. In the admin wing, Elena sent a last note: pilot approved, first review in 3 months, and shut off the light. The campus settled. The bridge they'd promised was visible now. Exhibits and rules, a van with fuel, a road with crossings to come, and on the far side of the glass a bobcat who could leave at any hour and, for the moment, chose to stay.